I remember stepping into the house. Think about when you first meet somebody. You'll be like, how's your day? How's it going? I'd be like, I'm sweating my ass off. And that would usually elicit a laugh. Like, you can be honest. Like, you don't have to be like, great. Or I'd be like, hey, I'm really nervous. And they'd be like, that's totally fine. Like, I think there's sometimes power in being honest and owning. I think they sometimes appreciate that because that's a way of you even showing confidence. So I think that don't try to script the interaction you'll have. That's weird.
Welcome to the Mad Rush Podcast. I'm Trisha Addix, the original sorority rush consultant. While the stories I have to share are nothing short of astonishing, this podcast goes beyond the wild client tales and sorority life. I'll be engaging with fascinating guests from both within and outside the Greek world, uncovering the surprising connections that bind us all together. Join me for a journey that's as entertaining as it is enlightening. Welcome to Mad Rush. Today I'm joined by Meredith Pannek. Meredith has worked as a mentor for my company for several years, and she's super dedicated to her clients. One of my favorite people, fun to be around, clients all love her. Meredith was an AD-PI at the University of Georgia, and she was vice president of recruitment counselors for Panhellenic at UGA, which means, I've said before, but Panhellenic is the governing body of sororities, and this means she was head of all the rush counselors, also known as Gamma Chi's, from all sororities. So she knows what she's talking about. Meredith grew up in Gainesville, Georgia. It's a small town about an hour north of Atlanta, depending on if you are my friend Hart, who drives like a bat out of hell. She gets there in about 20 minutes. But the rest of us, it's about an hour north of Atlanta. And besides Meredith and her sister Becca, who both work with me, I have so many unique connections to Gainesville with family and friends, and I'm pretty sure I should be an honorary town citizen. Today, Meredith and I are going to deep dive into sorority rush, and you're in for a treat. Welcome, Meredith.
Hello. Thank you, Trisha, for having me. My first podcast ever, so bear with me, y'all. But so excited to be here, and something I care a lot about, and I'm passionate about helping young women through the sorority recruitment process. So very thrilled to be here.
Awesome. And so I think we're going to get down to basics first, and then can you, for our listeners who aren't familiar with Rush, can you give a quick rundown of what the week looks like in general, and then what your Rush experience was like?
Yeah, sure. So although Rush does vary between, school to school, coming from an SEC school, I think that at most schools, it's definitely chaotic. So that is definitely a commonality at every university. But at UGA, when I was a freshman, we had 4 rounds through the recruitment week. So you start with the intro round, which is kind of like speed dating, where they're like 15 or 20-minute rounds. It feels like you black out during them. Like, I don't remember even what I said or what I was doing. You're sweating so much in August heat in Athens, Georgia. But usually this is the first meet and greet round, and you attend most every chapter house. I know it's kind of pivoted now where they do that asynchronously to video rounds, but kind of the same essence. Like, it's very brief, kind of just a first touch point for round 1 with the chapters and a potential new member. For round 2, that was philanthropy round at UGA. So that's when you learn a lot about whatever sororities cause. For for AD-PI, we had the Ronald McDonald House, and that's what
my very favorite charity.
Yeah. Great organization that we do our philanthropy events for, fundraising, service hours. So that's where you get a longer time to do like meet and greets. And there's also usually like a seated video to tell you about the chapter's philanthropy. Those are typically 10 or 15 minutes longer than the first round. I would say about 30 minutes in length. The third round is house tours, which is so fun. Usually people's favorite round, at least at UGA. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You get to traipse around the house with an active member and see where they sleep and live. And they're trying to show it off to you because as a sophomore at UGA, it's very popular to live in the sorority house. So I think that a lot of schools kind of mimic this round. And this is kind of where you're peering down and things are getting more serious. Typically, you're down to probably 7 or 8 options at this point. So you're definitely,
But if you have less, it's okay.
and if you have less, it's okay. Yes, I didn't have a full schedule, so it's okay. But you could have up to 8 houses typically where you get to do this tour, and that's where kind of like it's big decision making day because that is the precursor to preferential round, which is unnecessarily serious. I know it's serious, but it is like so serious. Everyone's wearing black. It is a very serious day, at least at Georgia and at other schools too. I don't know if they wear black, but on this day is when you go to typically 2 to 3 chapter houses, depending on where you attend school. At UGA, it's 3 or it's 2, and at most SEC schools, it's between that number. But this is the final round before you rank your options and choose where you most see yourself for the next 4 years of undergrad and then obviously, beyond. So this is the longest day. It's pretty emotional. Everybody's crying. It can be a little uncomfortable, but those are, the 4 rounds and a quick snapshot before bid day, which is, the fun day. And that kind of goes without saying, but like such a fun celebratory day. Like I wish I could relive it 1,000 times again. But like that's the best day ever at any college you go to. So,
and I wanted to interject here. I got an email from someone who asked, she had heard that during a house tour, and I'm not putting you on the spot here, someone who was an active in a sorority, it was actually a different school, said that what house tour you go on, what rooms you see is where you rank. And I'm here to tell you, so that those rumors are out there. There is a method to the madness that these sororities are doing, but don't try to figure it out. I mean, unless you are like Mary Harris, who was our first mentor, and she was standing in the foyer the entire time.
Yeah.
Don't waste your energy or time trying to figure out if you had the best house tour. So someone asked me that, and I was like, I don't know. It's some sororities, if they show you all the 4-person rooms, which makes it look like, 4 girls are living their best lives together, then that's the best room. And then if they show you the 1-person room, it's, so don't waste your time trying to figure it out. And to the person who asked me that, that's what I responded. But yeah, I want to just point out here that there are so many freaking rumors that go around. So and we'll get more into all that stuff, but keep your head down and don't listen to what people say because you can't figure it out.
No.
And there is a method, but you're not going to be able to figure it out. So
no. And to your point, Trisha, I was going to add that the room you're in that's already been decided. Like if you're in the solo room and you feel like, oh, wow, I'm not talking, like I'm here with 1 person, you're already in there. So you might as well make the best of it if this is a house you're really excited for and not try to talk yourself out of it, because otherwise you're definitely not going to be on your, conversational kind of A game with that active member. And then, bad things could follow. So I think that's something that as a PNM, you have to somehow, just kind of let it go and put it out of your mind.
And by this episode, you should know what a PNM is. But if you're just joining us, a PNM is a potential new member. It's formerly called Rushies, and those are the girls going through Rush. And then actives are the girls that are already in sororities. So again, if you're just joining Mad Rush, you're behind the gun, but you should know this by now. Okay, so that's a good description of Rush in general. And we prepare our clients for all these rounds. Sometimes things get a little out of control. And I know the answer to this, but can you tell us an instance when things went sideways and what happened?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely, a range of severity of events that can happen during recruitment week, from I have a firsthand experience. My first house, freshman year, walking into this house. You'll learn now that I'm not a member of that house, which is, it's not a problem. But I walked in, everyone's getting picked up by a member. Something got kerfuffled with the lines, and I was left
Kerfuffled.
here. I was left there standing alone. Nobody picked me up.
That same thing happened to Mary Harris. That's crazy.
It happens. I think these are huge rounds. And if one person steps out of line, like things get, and sometimes they're trying to match names and do the pairing. It was obvious I didn't have a pair. That's okay. It wasn't a house for me because I was standing there alone. And that was an example of a time where I just went up to my Gamma Chi and I was like, yo, like, what do I do? And they just tacked me on to another girl and an active member. And we had a 3-way convo. And it was good enough. So that's a minute example of little things will happen. I will say more significant events will happen. Absolutely. We see it happen, time and time again of girls coming through recruitment where they might have all of their best friends in a house or all of their high school friends in one place, or might not know anyone at all and expect certain outcomes. And as a friend, and also as a mentor, I would say about 50% of the people I work with or are my friends end up in a house that they probably didn't initially plan for or didn't think that wasn't their number one going in. So I think that there's a level of honestly aloofness and maybe emotional intelligence that you can kind of have walking into this week that's like nothing is decided yet. And it can be really taxing and has been on some of my girls that have gotten a schedule back one morning and it's kind of derailed their day and really had them affected how they proceeded and viewed the rest of the houses they had on their schedule that day, which were houses they were excited about all along. However, it wasn't the one that they had in mind in July. So I think that there's opportunity here that if you're somebody who likes to plan, I love to plan. I like to know exactly what's going to happen. I like to plan for the outcome. I like to plan, okay, what's going to happen if it doesn't go my way? I think the best thing you can do for yourself is not even say you're open to every chapter, but have at least 3, 5, 6 that you're really excited about because, and really genuinely, whatever, force yourself to get excited. Stalk their Instagrams, find the funny girls TikToks, like do what you need to like see where else you could fit in, because going in with one option that you're supposed to ride out the whole way through out of 20 is honestly an anomaly in this day and age. So I think that's a wayside experience that I think almost everybody has going through recruitment. Like, and it's honestly gut wrenching. So I think that you can be upset and like definitely cry. And then I think that you have to be able to, move on from it and repair and make sure that you're able to give yourself the best opportunity to find a good fit. So,
yeah, pivoting is important. And I think I talk about in one of my timeouts with Trisha, the wash your face plan, give yourself a moment, 5 minutes, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you owe it to yourself to give yourself a chance at the houses that you have left. And you said something that reminds me of my very favorite quote, which is that disappointment comes from expectations. Mm-hmm. So if you're expecting something to happen a certain way, you're most likely going to be disappointed.
Yep.
And that is a quote. I don't remember where I read it. It might have probably been where I get all my quotes, which is probably Instagram. That is something that if you're expecting something to be a certain way, it's probably not going to happen. And I had a client, this is when I still had clients, and she had gone through Rush her freshman year and didn't get into a sorority. So then she hired me to help her. And I learned a big lesson. She said, I will not get a rec, which is a recommendation for this one sorority. And she was like, I hated everybody I met my freshman year that was in this sorority. I didn't like them. I don't like their vibe. I think they're all a bunch of bitches, the whole 9 yards. And I said, okay, I will respect that. And if you're 100% sure you don't want to be in this sorority, I won't let you, I'll let you not get a rec, which is something that I normally wouldn't do. And sure enough, Wednesday comes around and she loves this sorority. She doesn't have a rec. And so then we're scrambling. And so I learned a big lesson. She learned a big lesson. She ended up pledging that sorority and had the greatest 4 years. She's no longer, she's out of college now, but
Mm-hmm.
that was a huge lesson. So she was adamant she
Mm-hmm.
wasn't going to be in the sorority, and it was a perfect fit for her. So keep an open mind for sure.
Yep. Yep.
So I also get asked a lot from two different angles, and you have the unique experience of that. I get asked a lot if someone has a sister in house. Like when you went through Rush,
Yeah.
Becca was already in a sorority. So that gives you pressure on two different ways.
Yeah.
One, so talk about what it looks like and
Yeah.
how you show other sororities that you're not already committed to your sister's sororities. What does that
100%.
look like?
Yeah. No, this is like my favorite topic and something I talk about to my mentees, I guess, a lot because I won't deny, it is a blessing. It is, I mean, hopefully sisters, I know sorority sisters, but a blood related sister, like surely that person is advocating for you on the inside. I would hope for anybody who has this, like I would be alarmed if they weren't.
Yeah.
And my sister was a senior when I was a freshman, and she was the Panhellenic president that year. So she wasn't actually in at 80 Pi, but her friends were still there. I was still, covered by her friends. I will say that Becca and I are very similar. So this worked out great for me. I feel like it gave me, exposure, and I really was certain about my decision, early on, but was still open-minded. The first part to answer your question that I think is important is having a sister on the inside does give you relief. I think people forget that for Becca and I only had 1 year of crossover at UGA with her. She was a senior and I was a freshman. So while Becca would get me in the chapter, she was only there for a year. Like I think sometimes I've seen this happen both ways. Like Becca couldn't ensure that I found a friend group, that I fit in, that it was a place for me. And I
Good
think
point.
I've seen it go both ways where for me, it was like an amazing decision. But I think that, if I chose that chapter just based on Becca alone and didn't consider the people who was going to be in my pledge class, I think I would have really been screwed because just like your sister's not there to make, she's kind of old. No offense, Becca, but she was kind of old at that point. She was a senior. She was graduating.
She's really old now.
She was able to protect me enough to get me into the sorority, but she couldn't protect the experience I would have. And so I think that that's an opportunity to cheesy, but self-reflect. If you have that situation, genuinely consider how similar are you to your sister? Level set. That might be with social behaviors. Do you like going out? Do you not? Are you really social? Are you not? Are you looking for, really people who are really prioritize academics or certain aspects of life? I think that that's something that's incredibly important because I think it can happen on the other side of things where you can end up in the wrong place because you felt like you had to go where your sister was. So,
and you bring up a good point, and I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah.
So we had this client who her grandmother was, we get this a lot, especially with these families from Mobile, Alabama, and Jackson, Mississippi, at Alabama or Ole Miss or wherever.
Yeah.
We get this a lot where the grandmother or the mother is like, my daughter is going to be whatever. Let's just use 80 Pi because you're an 80 Pi. My daughter is going to be an 80 Pi. Well, then they force it. So this is a different scenario with the family connections, but without an in-house sister. But so they force it and they get all of their friends, their connected friends and their daughters to just really, look out for their daughter or granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes and they've been basically forced into this because of generations and tradition and what their expectations of the grandparents or the mom. And it's a disaster. It doesn't, I can only say so many times, this is her journey. Sometimes it's the family deep roots and all that. But I really think that you make a really good point.
Yeah.
I think that it doesn't really matter who has been in the sorority before you, even if it's your blood related sister.
Yeah. And my mantra with all my girls is I'm seeming like such a cheese ball today, but it really, honestly, it's the way to success, I think, through Rush. And I think that the only person that you're harming when you like try to fake like a certain image or personality through recruitment is yourself, because like you might be able to put on a show for a week and like there is a little level of showness. Like you need, like you want to be extra confident if that doesn't come naturally, or there's certain tweaks you can do, but I don't think you can put on a show for 4 years and you wouldn't want to. And so if you're doing this to like level up into a chapter that like you were, maybe it was a reach per se or something that you felt like, you're really trying and gunning for it. When all the dust settles and then you're like, oh, okay, now I can just go back to being me. Like you ended up somewhere that chose you based on what you were presenting, for that whole week and not who you are all the rest of the time. And I think that makes it harder for you to make friends, which can be hard in and of itself. And then also makes you extremely unhappy. And a lot of times those are girls who might drop their sorority because they just are like, I don't fit in, and I'm like, I wonder how true to themselves, maybe they were, and it was just a flop, but how true to themselves they were being, throughout Rush when they ended up in that chapter in the first place. So that's some 2 cents too for sister wise, or just even like if there's a coveted chapter that you feel like you should be in, like if you don't end up there, there's probably a good reason you weren't supposed to. So,
and I get a lot of hate. Well, not a lot, but when I'm in the press and then people who don't understand what we do.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you're trying to make them into something they're not. And you hit the nail on the head. There is a level, it's just like anything else in life. There is a level of being appropriate for the situation, meaning dressing a certain way. Just like I've said a million times, you have to dress a certain way for a job interview. You have to dress in a certain way for Rush. You have to, but it doesn't mean losing sight of yourself, and you don't have to compromise that. But that's a very good point. We don't try to change our clients. We don't try to say, okay, if you're going to Ole Miss, you need to wear a ton of makeup. Or if you're going wherever, you need to wear, I don't know, pick a brand. I don't know. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is trying to help you show your best self. And then you can block out all that noise and find your best fit, which that's the whole name of the game. It's not about being in a certain sorority. It's not about changing yourself to fit in. And if you do that, what Meredith is saying is it's most likely not going to work out for you. And that's not what we do.
No. And I think it just, you become too aware of everything you're doing wrong. Like some of my girls, their outfits, I might not be obsessed with them. It might not be my personal style, but I think you have to level set, even with yourself, that like, or with, it's all Greek to me. Why would I point out something about somebody that they weren't insecure about until now? Like, I think girls have enough to worry about through recruitment that, to be quite honest, the outfits are like the smallest piece of the puzzle. They're maybe the least important in my personal opinion. And it's more dressing to be confident and like being a strong conversationalist and really having a rock star personality. And that's why the outfit matters, not because anyone's going to care about the brand, because I promise you, they're meeting 2,000 girls. They're not going to remember what you wore. They might be like, oh, she was so cute, but no one's going to truly remember, but they will remember, no offense, if you were awkward or if the conversation felt really strained. And so I think it's like there's a balance to find where you're polishing the best version of, like, I'm polishing the best version of Meredith. I'm going to make sure my outfits are on point and that I am well rested and I like the way my makeup looks. But beyond that, I'm not going to change anything else. Like, I'm still going to, say some things that people I think are funny. They might not think are funny, and that's okay.
That never happens. You're always funny.
But that's part of it. Like, honestly, like, I think you have to be able to know what your strengths are in general, like, when it comes to first meeting somebody and trying to lean into that. Like, if in general, if people think, you're funny, or if like you're known for being quick-witted or something, like, you don't need to tell yourself, okay, make sure I'm funny in this. But I think that you need to maintain that, like, how can I make sure that something that people have told me is one of my strengths, I can maybe use this to navigate this process, which I think is helpful.
Yes, it's super helpful. And if you don't know your strengths, then that's what you need to work on. Mm-hmm. And that finding yourself and finding what makes you shine is all part of it. And that's what we do at, with our clients is, okay, so you're struggling a little bit. You seem to be struggling a little bit with, conversation, like small talk. I'm terrible. Me, Trisha,
You're
terrible.
not.
No, I'm terrible at small talk. I really am, because I want to like get really deep really
Yeah.
fast. That is my
That's fair, actually.
yeah. But like I went to a cocktail party recently, and I'm standing there with my husband, and I'm like, okay, we gotta go. Like I can't, because I don't want to sit there and be like, so how's the weather? And that is part of what you have to do during rush.
Sure.
And making small talk. Luckily, I'm not going through rush again. Thank the 8-pound, 6-ounce baby Jesus. But I would need to work on that, because I'm really, really, really bad at small talk. Now, if you put me in a room with someone for an hour, I'm going to know everything about them when we get out of that room, and I'm going to love them, and they're going to be my person after an hour. But don't put me in a room with 2,000 other girls. I will shut down. And so that is something I would have to work on. And so recognizing that, I mean, granted, I'm 56, so it's taken me a long time to recognize that. Don't invite me to a cocktail party. Well, actually invite me, but I'm probably not going to come. I want to be invited. But, figuring out what you need to work on is key. And yes, wearing an appropriate outfit is important. But like Meredith says, and we were talking about it before we started recording this podcast, if you have the best outfit, if you have the most expensive shoes, and if you have, got it all going on in that area, and you're acting bored, or you're acting bitchy, or you think you're better than somebody, or if you think you're all that, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. It's gonna probably not end as well as it could.
No one has ever said she really sucked, but we like her outfit, so let's keep her. like that just doesn't happen. Like it doesn't happen like that. Like you could be wearing, no offense, if someone listens to this that intends to wear chacos at Rush, but if you're cool and you're wearing chacos, whatever. Like honestly,
Right.
like I think that like genuinely, like that's really like a bottom ranking. Honestly, it might make you more memorable. Like that girl wore chacos. Like she's funny, or maybe unintentionally. But like your outfit is not going to be the reason you get in somewhere. So let that part go a little bit, especially when it's coming like down to the last few days. Like UGA kicks off here in a few days. What you've got ready is good, good enough.
Right. And I'll interject too with the chacos thing, because this is a very good point. We had a client who went through rush at another school, and she broke her heel. She went barefoot into the house. She had her pick of to several houses, several parties. She went barefoot and she owned it again, but she had the personality and she had the confidence to say, yeah, I'm not coming in here with one shoe on, one shoe off. So I'm just barefoot. So she had a great rush, but when we talk about what you're wearing and, hair and makeup and all that stuff, it's so that you can be confident. And if you're confident in what you're wearing, it really doesn't matter what you're wearing. And if it's rush appropriate, again, the chacos, I am going to that's the hill to die on. I'm not letting you wear chacos. But
that was a bad example, but you know what I mean? Like,
right. That's what I was saying.
Like, honestly, I don't know I might be getting too old too, that I don't know what the trends are. Like they're hitting the 18-year-olds before they're hitting me. So if someone's wanting to wear, what are those things people used to wear? Like Jack Rogers. Is that what those are called?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I know those are out of style. I heard they're coming back. Maybe they are. Like it's okay. Maybe chacos are not appropriate for the context, but something that's, not it anymore, it'll be okay.
Right. And it's all about confidence. And that's what, get back to the press that I've gotten where people are like, they're trying to change, I'm like, no, we're just trying to give you the tools. Cause I've also used this Doc Martin story. I had a client who wanted to wear Doc Martens, and she was super beautiful, super stylish. She looks like a, supermodel. And but she didn't know anybody at her school, and she wanted to wear Doc Martens. And I was like, no, you can't wear Doc Martens during rush. And it's not because you you can't wear Doc Martens during rush, and it's not because Doc Martens are so terrible, but what's going to happen is you're going to step out of your dorm room where you've gotten ready, and you're going to look around, and you're going to be the only person in Doc Martens. So that's what you're going to be thinking about all day versus getting to know the people and having the people get to know you. So sure, wear your Doc Martens bid day, whatever, but when you want to let your freak flag fly, or when you want to rock your style, doing that during rush is most likely not the time to do it, even because you're not going to be confident. You're not going to be confident wearing Doc Martens. And that's the whole point. It's what you're able to block out all the noise and show your best self. And you're not your best self because you wear Doc Martens. Yeah. So let it go. Let the outfit go, which is such a great point. And it's also probably a little different than people would think we would say.
Yeah, no, like I'm with you, like err on the side of simple. Like we don't need to be doing anything more than that, than cute and simple. Like simple will never make you stick out in the wrong kind of way.
Yes, that's a great point. That's a great point. It's a very good point. And also leads me to people who say sorority girls are all blonde and skinny. And yes, granted, we're both sitting here blonde, but not either.
No, we're good there.
But that was again in Bama Rush. They're like, oh, everybody's blonde and skinny. And we did have a client. I think this was Sarah Grace's client. I'm not sure. She was from New Jersey, and her dad was driving down Millage, which is the road where all the sorority houses were, after they had dropped their daughter for Rush, and they were still there because it takes, a month to get back to New Jersey. And he's driving down Millage, and he calls us and is like, wait, everybody is skinny and blonde. And I was like, no, take a deep breath. No, it's not. It's really not. I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but it is not about appearances. I say this all the time. It is not. You don't pick your friends because of the way they look. Alabama sororities do not pick you because you're skinny and blonde. Alabama sororities do not pick you because you're wearing the right thing. It's all about letting yourself shine. And Meredith does an exceptional job with that with her clients. And then they're like, well, okay, good. I don't need to stress about this. And so they're not stressing about that.
No, I think that is, and I remember going through, when I was about to say little, when I was a freshman, like I was stressed. Like I think my outfits were from Belk, which I'm a Belk fan. Shout out Belk, and like Forever 21. And maybe I had like one Zara top, but I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like so many stunning Texas girls, or like, Atlanta girls, which like I love Gainesville. That's fine. It was stupid, but you don't know what you don't know. And I think I was fortunate to have my sister where she's like, Meredith, people like, this is all about a personality test. And like, I think you can be great at that. I'm like, I think I can be great at that too. Like, she's like, don't worry about that. Like, I don't think my outfits were adorable at all. I think I was just like, screw it, whatever. Like every single day, a chapter is going to choose the person like that they got along with better, whether that was more likable, they were funnier, they were humble, they were honest, whatever, over the most stunning person in the room. And you can be both. And that's awesome. If you're both, you're really set up for success. But like, I really think that that's probably the biggest, like, I know there's rumors about recruitment, and sometimes they're true. And we're like, no. And sometimes there's a little bit of truth to them. But when it comes to truly how you look, if you look like you brushed your hair and like care about how you look, like no one's going to care if you wear makeup or don't, or wear something that's on trend or not. Because I mean, you're talking about, at least at UGA, there's 5,000, maybe 6,000 women in the Panhellenic community now. So I promise you, their fashion and their bodies are all over the place. And that's great. Like that, they don't care. And I think that getting that through to potential new members ahead of the process is probably the most valuable thing you can do, because they're looking and feeling insecure, and then that's affecting how they present in these conversations with strangers, which is really the part where we cannot go easy. Like that needs to be actually the excellent part. So I think keeping that in mind, that like if you're making them laugh, no one's looking at what you're wearing. So, or no one's
It's
looking if
true.
you're skinny, not skinny. That doesn't matter. Like you even see it in the representation of presidents and recruitment chairs. Like they all look different too. So I think I've heard before, like presidents have to look a certain way or be, this size. And I'm like, I don't know if you've seen what these presidents at these schools look like these days, but that's really not it. Like, honestly, like you really have a range, which is great. So,
Well, and that's the whole thing. It really is. And I've said this a million times, and I know people will not believe me still, some people, because they have their preconceived notion. But I mean, yes, there are bitchy girls in anything you do in life, there are
yeah.
bitchy girls. But it really is about celebrating friendships, and it's about celebrating women. And I could talk till I'm blue in the face. Some people aren't going to believe me. They're going to still say it's whatever it is they're going to say. But I maintain that it's about the connections that you make, and it's all about the connections. And that's the connections when you're in rush, and it's the connections after rush, and it's the connections now in my life. It's the connections you make at work. And I was going to say exactly what Meredith just said. I've never picked a friend or wanted to be around somebody just because they're pretty. I mean, that probably
Like
happens
that's
a lot.
boring.
Well, it probably happens a lot with me. Like, I think people want to be my friend because I'm so pretty.
You are.
But, but no, I'm kidding about that. But what I mean is, and so whatever you see on Bama Rush or whatever, that's not what it's about. It's really, really,
Yeah.
really not. And we both know what we're talking about. So listen to us. And she brings up a very good point. And if you aren't funny or if you aren't comfortable, that's what you need to work on.
Yeah.
That is what you need to work on versus stressing about, shopping. I mean, sure, get your outfits and we can help you with that. And Range Boutique can help you with that. And wherever can help you with that.
Yeah.
But it's all about showing your best self.
Mm-hmm.
So that leads me to, what do you think are some of the biggest pitfalls, either that our clients have done,
Yeah.
or just you've seen people do in rush?
So there's a lot. There's a lot. And I'm like, this is just going to scare people. There are a lot of things that you can do wrong. I'm going
to interject. And I think that's good that you say that, because that is the whole point of this.
Yeah.
Is we're not sugarcoating it. We're also telling you the truth. So when I say they aren't picking you for your outfits or because you're skinny or you're blonde, believe that. But then also believe the scary shit, because it's important. So go ahead.
I would say maybe kind of chronologically, like going into college or going into recruitment, it happens every year, and it's always adorable girls, but there are girls that think that they are the queens of the world. We have them. I've known them myself. I've had them in my Gamma Chi recruitment counselor groups, and that's great. Be confident. We need that. We need the first part. The second part is they run their mouth about, I know I'm going to be an 80 pie. I'm saying I'm an 80 pie. I know I'm going to be a blah, 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 to everyone and their mother. And it gets back to chapters. So the first thing that I think is a pitfall and then a correction is like, stop running your mouth so much about what sororities you like, don't like, and where you think you're going to end up. Because I promise you, it gets back. You could tell your friend at another school, she's trying to help you. And she's like, Meredith said she really wants to be an 80 pie. And the 80 pie is interpreted as, Meredith says she's got a bid. And it's a game of telephone. So the best thing you can do to protect yourself is just be really humble and be like, I'm so excited about a bunch of houses. Maybe you could rattle off a few and be like, I'd be so lucky to get into any of these. Like, in your mind, you can think, I'm safe. And maybe you are. I hope you are. I hope that you know what you want and you get what you want. Wouldn't that be great? But I would hate, and I do see it. I hate to continue seeing girls that I feel like are screwed because they come through as too cocky. And you have to remember the essence of recruitment. What this is a bunch of girls trying to come off as the most appealing option to a bunch of other girls so that they'll choose them.
God, that's so good.
If you come across as this big group is desperate for you, they don't want that. They want girls who are like like that feel like they've earned a spot and blah, blah, blah. They don't want girls that are like, oh, like, yeah, like I might go there. Like they like won't leave me alone. Like who wants that? Like we want humble, fun, but especially humble people because you're young too. Like there is a seniority element to this as well. Seniors in college and a 18-year-old coming through running her mouth, like they're going to chew you up and spit you out, I guess is the best way to say it. And I think that this happens when it comes to what you do in the summer and then also when you go through rounds. I see girls all the time.
Expound on what you do in the summer. That's a good point.
Yeah, I think that like as you're preparing, maybe you are invited for an orientation to go out with some girls or hang out with some girls in the summer, or maybe you run into people when you're at your respective, universities, college town for the summertime. And I think that that's like that. Those are critical moments where you can be like calm, but like I would really think like treat it as like a fun job interview. Like they're picking you. Like I know it's a mutual selection process. At the end of the day, at least for the first few rounds before pref, the chapters typically do hold the power. Like they do make more aggressive cuts than the potential new members are, or for 90% of people, the chapters hold the power. Maybe a special 10% just ride on through and they don't know what I'm talking about. And I love that because they're not traumatized. But for the others, I think that your behavior when you interact with chapter members and interact with anybody like keep it to your mom or your best friend who might not be going to college yet, or like really be careful about who you talk to, or like use a journal. Like, I don't know, like write it.
I like journal. Don't talk to anybody.
Because it screws people over and then people just start getting louder and louder about it when the week goes on, telling people how they're ranking, or 80 Pie was just like all over me today. Like they were like bowing at my feet. Oh my God, do not say that. Don't say that. You will be cut the next day. I promise you.
And that's also a good point too. Don't run your mouth in the dorm, because we get clients who are hysterical because they've been cut and they're like, and she didn't get cut from anything. And that they're making it up. I promise you, everybody, I mean, with the exception, like you said, of that percentage that I've never met.
It's probably 1%, not 10.
Yeah.
Like
yeah. I was going to say, but with the exception of them, everybody is feeling the way you are, and you can't trust what anybody says. And it's not necessarily because they're lying, but they don't want to be embarrassed. So they'll say, oh, I got invited back to 8 or whatever. But really, they're just protecting themselves. So keep your head down and your mouth shut.
Yes, please keep it shut. Like the best thing that you can do, and this looks different for everybody, is trying to really think about confident and humble. Like those should be like your at least for, I tell my girls, like those should be like your pillar words of how you're going to go through this week. Like to me, you might be like, Meredith, they seem so obsessed with me. I'm their mentor. I'm not at Rush. And I'm going to be like, heck yes, we're going to scream together. We're going to be like, yes, that probably does mean something good. And you tell me that, we'll celebrate that. But to the rest of the world, you're like, yeah, like I really loved being there. Like it was so nice meeting them. Like make it more how you felt about them if you have to comment, which you really shouldn't be, versus how they were treating you, because nobody wants a girl who thinks she's all that. And this is also the same kind of profile of girl is at UJ, there's 20 chapters now. You're going to go to chapters where you don't like it. And this is when being a little bit of an actress is important, because if you come across as hostile or disinterested or rude, or I've heard of girls running off to the bathroom and locking themselves in there, which is horrible. Like you deserve bad things to happen to you if you're going to do that. That's so mean. Don't be mean. But that stuff travels too. So you might be at blah, blah, blah house that you really don't like, and your top house catches wind of you acting like a brat at this house, and they cut you for it too, because they're like, wait, like, no, we don't want that persona either. So the best thing you can do is just pretend you're really excited to be at every house you go to, even if you're not, and make the best of it. Because you're only there 20 minutes. So put on a show, maybe put on your better shows at the ones you're really happy about, but like you should be smiling. And if anything, treat it as a mock round for your next house. Like, engage in the conversation. Try and make it's good practice for when you're at houses that you might be more excited about. So you don't need to treat some houses as like, I don't care about these, because you know what? That might be all you have left at the end of this if you keep up with this attitude. So
it's true. And we had a client, and I will change the name and the circumstances to protect the innocent, but she was not humble. And we were drilling it into her head. And she was convinced that she was going to, for months, we're like telling her, it wasn't Meredith's client, but telling her, you cannot act this way. And her mentor texted her like during rush and was like, because she had gotten cut from several. And she said, are you being humble? Because we knew this was the challenge. And she literally sent, and you can't see me, maybe you can when we launch our YouTube channel. She sends back a screenshot and says, it's hard to be humble when you're hot AF, and goes like that, and throws deuces to her mentor, who is also an older person. And we were like, okay, so this is what she's doing to us. She is not being humble in rush. And it's a true story. We were like, okay. And it was how she was. Yeah, it was tough. It was very tough. And her mentor sent me the screenshot and was like, what do I do? And I was like, okay, yeah, I think this a little bit more than we can work with at this point in the middle of rush. We've been trying for months. And another example is, I remember this from 1986, the year I did not get in a sorority. There was this girl, she went to a private school from Atlanta. I was from Charlotte, North Carolina. And she walked into a house that she thought was not good enough for her. And she sat down on the steps and was like, I'm hot, bring me some water. And to this day, I was talking to a friend of mine, like, I think it was last week, about like stories that stick out in our memory about rush. That was one of them. And it bit her in the ass, because those people were sisters. Somebody was a sister with the sorority that she said she was going to be in. And she's like, she came in and was acting like, she did not want to be there. And so she tells her actual blood sister, who's in the sorority that she wanted, that she did this, and that did not work for her.
That is insane. Like, yeah, if you want to make sure that you don't end up somewhere, do all of these things. Like, like, I cannot stress it enough. Your attitude, I really think, is it's not the make or break for every chapter. It's going to be the make or break for most. I think that, and if you want to get a certain chapter, if you're one of those people that's especially picky, and then you choose to act like this, it's just really a self-sabotage situation. So please don't do that. Please don't do that.
Please don't. And I would like to say something about the number of sororities now. So like in 1986, when I went through and this girl shot herself in the foot for that, it was a different world. There weren't as many sororities. And I've said it a million times, I got into Georgia with a 2.6. Okay. Ain't nobody going to Georgia with a 2.6 now. Nothing wrong with a 2.6, but it's so competitive now. So what happens is, so many great girls with great grades and great extracurricular activities. They're going. And so all of these amazing girls cannot fit into what has traditionally been a top tier, because there has to be, and I've said it before, a trickle down thing. So what you may have heard from your grandmother or from your mom or from somebody else who was there 10 years ago, oh, these 5 are the best. It's not the case anymore. It's really not. And again, believe what we're saying. Yes, there are some that struggle and are not always going to attract, just because they don't have the history or whatever. The history, not the history of sorority, but being in a school, it takes a while to establish a sorority or a chapter, at any particular school. But for the most part, and I'm speaking to those of you who are concerned about the top tier bullshit, it's just not the case anymore. It's really not. And so don't put that on your daughter, or don't put that on your granddaughter. Let them find their fit, because I promise you, I've had friends who've been in the bed for a month because their daughter what didn't become, let's use AD Pie as an example. But their daughter's happy, and that's all you want. And
Yeah.
so just don't put that on your kids. If I'm Meredith speaking to you, I'm speaking to the moms and the grandmoms. Like,
Yeah.
it's not the way it's not the way it used to be. It's not. And you can't go in with that
No.
attitude regardless. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. So speaking of which, I did want to tell this crazy story that I had of a client who her grandmother was the one who wanted her to go through Rush.
Mm.
She didn't want to go through Rush, wasn't her jam. It was a small town, Mississippi person, and she was 100% sure her granddaughter had to be in the certain sorority. Her granddaughter went on an outward bound for the entire summer. The grandmother flew to me on her private jet, and I prepared the grandmother for Rush. And I never even met my client. And that is just an extreme, true story about how I
Mm.
prepared the grandmother who hired me and met the daughter when she was going through Rush, in the middle of Rush. Is that not nuts?
And that's an example of like, we're all pro like this business, but like, this is an example of like, if your daughter's not into it or like, you
Yeah.
don't have to make them. Like, I
Yeah.
think it's a great way to meet people, but like the college student should be the one electing to go through the process. And I would half-ass it if I was going through and my grandma signed me up for it. Like, I don't care. Like,
Right.
I think that that's when you have to kind of level set, like you said, moms, grandmas, dads, whatever, this is not your experience. This is your child's. And so I feel like I'm not married, but I hear this happens with weddings too, that like sometimes that's another life event, like college and Rush and then weddings, that like parents can sometimes domineer the experience and like they're more like gut wrenched at their daughter not getting some sorority, even if they're not even a alum or some chapter than the daughter is. And the daughter is like, wait. And so I think we should not project like our experiences onto our kids, like not trying to sound all, like bad parenting, but like genuinely, like don't make your kids go through something they don't want to or make them feel worse about the situation than they already are. Like it already is like a very alienating process. And like this grandma sounds like a queen for flying to
Yes.
see you, but then the granddaughter just like didn't care. So
Right.
like the grandmother she might get the prep from you, but she can't go through. She can't show up to the rounds. Like they're going to think she's an advisor. Like, maybe not even that. No offense. Cut that if we can't say that. But I'm just saying, like, what was
You
she going
say
to
it.
do with that? Like,
Yeah.
what
No, it
was,
was. Yeah. And I didn't know it when I took her as a client. I didn't know that the granddaughter I was never going to meet the granddaughter. And by then it was too far into it.
it's a
And
crazy
yeah,
story.
so speaking of parents, and I have one more kind of crazy, well, this isn't really a crazy story. This is something that happens a lot. So the moms or the grandmothers will hire us and we'll start working, and the the daughters in these scenarios that I'm going to say are usually into it way more than the grandma with the PJ. And so the father or the dad or whatever, it's like, why are you hiring a Rush consultant? Like, that's not even a thing. What is that? I usually try to explain it's like a pitching coach if for their son pitching, whatever, falls on deaf ears. I cannot tell you the amount of times the dads are like, hold up a minute. Like in the middle of Rush, they're calling me and like,
Yeah.
wait, what is going on? I'm like, your daughter's prepared for this. You are not. So just chill out. And then usually it is the dads at the end who, after all the dust settles are like, wait, yeah, it was really good that we had you because they think their daughter is perfect and wonderful or maybe not even perfect, but just they know the amazing things about their daughter. So they're like, why doesn't everybody see that? And I'm like, well, you kind of got to show them that. And that's the whole process.
Yep.
So is there anything else? You've had some really good advice. And again, I'm telling you, people who are listening, this is just not me and Meredith and I just shooting the shit. we know what we're talking about. We've lived it. Meredith's been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for a long time. That is crucial advice. You gotta be happy to be there. If you don't have, if you're shy or whatever, that's what you work on. You don't work on spending more money on your clothes.
Yep. I think my last thing that I was thinking of, and this is an overall sentiment, but also, when you think about entering into the rounds, I think that there's a lot of, and I still say we should err away from, controversial topics. People like to say like the 5 B's, or I don't even know what they stand for, but like
they're in our Bible.
Okay. I don't know what they stand for.
And we actually have 6, but continue.
Let's think, and let's not talk about things that like you can't assume how someone feels about certain topics. But I want to say that I think P&M's getting there, and they think they need to either have a script ready, or their first question might be like, "Hey, I'm Meredith. Hey, I'm Trisha. What sports did you play in high school?" Like, that's so awkward to me. And I want to give anyone who listens to this permission, like, talk about whatever you want. Like, yes, know that I already said, do not talk about these certain, controversial topics. I remember stepping into the house. Think about when you first meet somebody. You'll be like, "How's your day? How's it going?" I'd be like, "I'm sweating my ass off." And that would usually elicit a laugh. Like, you can be honest. Like, you don't have to be like, "Great." Or I'd be like, "Hey, I'm really nervous." And they'd be like, "That's totally fine." Like, I think there's sometimes power in being honest and owning, like, instead of just seeming like I'm nervous. And like, maybe some people shake when they're nervous. I get a rash sometimes when I'm nervous. Instead of just trying to ignore that, I'd be like, "I'm so nervous." And I think they sometimes appreciate that, because that's a way of you even showing confidence. So I think that don't try to script the interaction you'll have. That's weird. I think you can have a few anecdotes in your back pocket. Like, I remember I got my wisdom teeth out like a week before I went to recruitment, and I would walk in and they're like, "What have you been doing?" I'm like, "I'm just afraid I'm going to wake up like a chipmunk," which I already had a fat face. It slimmed down a little bit, but like a chipmunk with dry sockets, and like have to go to rush. That's like, some people around it thought that was weird. That's very niche, but like, I wasn't just like, "Oh, I was binge watching Netflix," and just like you gotta remember, you have to have something to connect with people, and you're being judged on your ability to connect like that, especially if you don't know people going into recruitment. Like, I think that I have friends who have been successful and walked in and are just amazing personalities. It was no shock to anybody, and went through the whole process and ended up exactly where they wanted to, because they have an amazing ability to just connect with anybody or talk to people. And like you said, Trisha, I don't think I'm that great at small talk either. Like, I feel weird about like, what is your favorite coffee? Right. Like, that's just, what is your go-to Starbucks order? Like, don't say anything like that. Please don't say that.
What flavor ice cream would you be if you could be a flavor of ice cream?
Think about this. Like, when you first meet people, like, I think about like meeting somebody at like the gas station. Like, that's random, but I love to go get like a soft drink at the gas station. Your first interaction with somebody isn't usually like, "Hey, like, what is your name?" Like, it's usually like something in common, like a commonality. Like, start off with "I love your dress." And then like, that's like a segue. Like, I think that you can use what's around you, or like, if it's been raining, like, "Oh my God, I'm sopping wet." Like, you can be literal about it too, to like, and then you're also gauging their humor. Like, how do they react to that, and navigate from there, instead of trying to like cold pitch in there and be like, "Well, what is your major?" I'm sorry for doing that voice, but like, don't do that. Don't have a script. I think that you can just think about, what are your strengths in a conversation? Think about the types of friends you have around you, maybe, and like, or ask people in your life, like, "Okay, what do you think is like my strengths in a conversation, or what are things that I might do well?" And they could give you some pointers. But I think don't over plan when you're actually in the rounds, because that'll come off a little awkward. Mm-hmm. And Fair. We're really trying to come across as confident and humble and excited to be there. And I think it's better to be honest about being nervous than being nervous and not admitting to it. I think that there's like a line you can toe and be like, this process is so stressful. Like, I'm really nervous. And that's okay to say. Like,
that's good advice. And with that, you can say you're sopping wet or you're nervous or whatever, but what she's saying, and I want to make sure this is perfectly clear, this is not a complaint. You are laughing about it. You're not saying, "Oh my God, I'm sopping wet. This is terrible weather."
It's the tone.
Yeah. I think honesty is great, and the commonality, I love that word, but don't complain no matter what. Even if you are sweating, you can laugh about the fact that you are sweating.
Yep.
But don't bitch about the fact that it's hot. That there's two different things. And I feel like that's goes with anything in life. You know, being positive and being able to laugh at yourself is important, but also honesty is going to get you way further than just trying to, I mean, yeah, there's fake it till you make it. And here I go, like being contradictory, whatever. But just be positive, humble, happy to be there, and genuine, and you will find your place.
100%.
And we know what we're talking about, people. I promise. And don't listen to rumors. Okay, so that was a lot to unpack, and it is a treat for you guys listening that you have Meredith on the sound waves, because she is super dialed in and she knows what they're looking for and the way to be successful in Rush, because she is very successful at what she does.
Thank you.
So Bama Rush Talk popularized the hashtag OOTD outfit of the day. For Mad Rush, I'm repurposing hashtag OOTD into observation of the day. So Meredith, what is your hashtag observation of the day?
I know that we kind of talked about this. And I'm thinking,
so excited about it.
Well, okay. First of all, my aunt got me on this at Christmas. I thought it was a scam. No one cancel me. I know it's, fast fashion, but it's good deals. And Temu, Temu. If this podcast ever comes across their desk, I would love to be sponsored. I would love a gift card. But that place is awesome, y'all. And they honestly have kind of good clothes. I got a few bathing suits, but just like novelty items, everything you can get on Amazon for parties.
I got Cheez-It earrings once I discovered it.
I definitely, if I had some, I wish I should have I have some earrings too, but I don't know if anything's near me, but I'm not kidding y'all. I don't know what's going on. Every time you purchase on there, it's like 99% off your whole order. I don't know. It could be illegal. I hope not. But have some fun on there, and maybe I could get a referral code out there for people to use.
I was about to say, y'all need to follow. So I discovered Temu. I don't even know how you say it, because I'm not even on TikTok very much, but I came across a video of Meredith like opening up, and she's very funny, if you can't tell, opening up her Temu haul.
Yeah.
And like modeling it, and I was literally crying laughing. So y'all find her on TikTok, and she can tell you in a second how you can do that. But I'm pretty sure they're not going to sponsor you because everything's 99% off.
I know,
so you're paying $2 for a pair of earrings. Like, what are you going to get a gift certificate for? Like, that's not going to happen.
It's very similar to Shein, I think, but with faster shipping and free shipping as well. And like, I do have something near me. My puffy headbands. Like, I don't know. Y'all know these on Amazon are $10. And I got this for, I think, 5 cents on Temu. So
wait, what are you doing with that? Don't wear those.
No, this is what I get ready with me. Like, this is what I do with my skincare. I don't wear this out in life, Trisha.
I'm so traumatized.
This is like my version of Chacos. I'm mad at you for thinking that. No, this is like when I'm doing my makeup or my skincare. Okay. It's like all the TikTokers wear them. You would know if you were.
If I were on anybody, I'm on Riley, who
Trisha. I'm mad at you for thinking that I was wearing that for real.
Well, you never know. I don't know.
You never know. And you know what? You still like me. That's my version.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
What a great point. What a great point. I still like you, even if you wore that ugly ass headband out in public. All right. So Temu is her observation of the day. Shop on Temu. She thinks she's going to get some sort of sponsorship. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But if y'all want to give her a follow on Instagram or TikTok, give your handle or whatever.
I think on Instagram, I'm Pannek at the Disco, and my username on TikTok is, I didn't know I was going to be sharing this, is...
You don't have to.
No, I can say it. I think it's Danny DeVito's wife. It's not like a business TikTok. It's like, sometimes I go private because I'm afraid of like killers, and sometimes I'm public because I like think what I'm doing is funny too. So Danny DeVito's wife is the username.
I don't think I've ever even known your TikTok, what it was like. All right. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all of the things you've done for our clients. And for me, you are super special to me and to all who know you. And I love you. And I'm so grateful you are a part of our team.
Me too. I love you back. Thank you for having me. I hope I'm not the worst guest ever, but
Well,
we'll see.
We'll determine that after Collier, the
No,
producer
to
of
be
To the
determined.
Stars, edits us. Welcome to Time Out with Trisha. Because can you really give advice if you don't speak about yourself in the third person? I don't think so. This is exactly how I speak to my clients. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. Now let's get into it. "2024 rush numbers are starting to trickle in. There is an insane number of girls going through rush this year. And from the numbers of calls I'm already getting for fall 2025, I don't see it slowing down. For instance, this year there are approximately 2,600 girls going through rush at the University of Georgia. Let's do the math. And let's do the math with the caveat that I have the distinction, this is a true fact, of being the first person in history who was called into my university president's office, and I was told that it was clear that I was a smart person who was never going to graduate if I had to pass Math 101, which I had already taken 3 times. They waived the requirement for me. I don't have any knowledge of that happening before me or after me. Anyway, back to the math. 2,600 girls going through rush at Georgia. 20 sororities. That means for everyone to find a spot, the pledge class would be 130 people. Last year's pledge classes at Georgia were approximately 100 people. So again, with the math, if pledge classes are around the same number this year, then approximately 600 people going through rush will not have a spot. Now, they do adjust this number based on the number of people going through rush, but that still doesn't take into account that it's not possible that all 20 sororities are a fit for you. So, how do you stand out? How do you find your fit having these crazy numbers? I'm going to say it again. Make connections this summer. Reach out. Barring that, you have to be prepared when you get there. Be confident. You have to be able to block out the noise. So before you go, I've said this before, I'll say it again, research each sorority's philanthropy, know something about the houses when you go in to meet the people in the houses. Have a wardrobe plan set for every day so you can block out the noise when you get there. And go to your school's Panhellenic website and read the rush guide for this year. Every school has one. Some are more, I think Georgia's is 72 pages. Go through it so you know what you're getting into and you're prepared. You can call us at It's All Greek to Me if you need us, but regardless, you need to do your homework. Be prepared. And that's it for Time Out with Trisha. We'll see you on another episode of the Mad Rush Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Mad Rush Podcast. If you are enjoying this podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. For additional Rush tips, updates, and more, please follow me on Instagram at Rush with Confidence. If you would like to reach out to us or for more information, please email info@madrushpod.com. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry and Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Trisha Adams.